Okay, so here we're looking at the IGCSE Biology, the multiple choice questions, and there are actually some instructions on the first page that is important because I've seen people get this wrong. The important one is here. For each question, there are 4 possible answers. So far, it's multiple choice. A, B, C, D. Choose the one, just the one you consider right for the record. And record your choice in soft pencil on the multiple choice answer sheet. All right. Follow the instructions. Write in soft pencils. Do not use correction fluid. Do not write on the barcodes. You may use a calculator. The important thing here, I'm going to show you later, is if you have one here, an A, B, C, or D, you have to choose one of them. And I'll show you later where you can get it wrong. It's important. Just choose A, B, C, or D. Do not start writing inside any of the tables or anything. Just choose one. Okay, let's get on. Okay, here are the first questions. And if you want to try to solve them yourself, just pause here and then think which one you think are the answers for question 1 and question 2. All right? Okay, let's look at it. As quite often in Cambridge, what they're actually trying to do here is what I like to do is to first look at which one it can't be. Okay, we have water here coming in from the soil, so it's not excretion. Again, we have sunlight here, so it's during day, so it's not respiration. And we don't see anything about the leaf changing its orientation, so it's not sensitivity, which only leaves us with one answer, which is the correct, which is this is nutrition. Okay, the next one does the same. It gives us something that could, well, it sounds like it could be something. We are told that we could look at a group of organisms that can reproduce to have fertile offspring, a group of animals that can produce genetically different offspring, a group of organisms living in the same area, this is population, or the relations in the ecosystem. So again, the important thing is to here to remember the definition, and the definition is that species are something that can produce fertile offspring. So our answer here would be A. So here we see one of those questions where I quite a few times have seen students saying, okay, I'm going to mark here, I'm going to mark this one, and I'm going to mark this one. And, oh yeah, lungs and milk, that sounds correct. But this is not the way to do Cambridge. You want to make sure you mark either A, B, C, or D. So let's go back. First of all, we have 2 things here. We have gills. There's a dolphin. It doesn't have gills. So only C and D is possible. And produces milk. Yes, all mammals do that. So our only real option here is D. There's another one of the question that can confuse people because we have all these different things, and sometimes people say, okay, what can be found in animal cell? And then they start to say, yes, the cell membrane. No, and then start. But again, we have to choose either A, B, C, or D. In this case here, it can be smart to look at, all right, are any of these here only found in plant cells? Yes, and that's our cell wall, and that's our chloroplast, and that's our lattice vacuole. So anyone that includes them can't be the answer. So you see we have a cell wall here in A and C. So A and C are out. We have chloroplasts in D. So D is out, which leaves us only with, let's see, B. Okay, the next one, what is the function of the ciliated cells and bronchi? Well, absorbing oxygen, that's further down. Digesting pathogens, no, that's a white blood cell. Move mucus, that sounds just about right. Let's choose that one. Now, as you might have noticed, you're allowed to bring a calculator to this one here. And this is actually one of the places where it might be useful because That can give you here, we magnification 30 times. We know this length here is 45 millimeters. What is actual? And that's B 1.5. The next one asks us about osmosis. Osmosis is have a semi-permeable membrane, not permeable, and it's water. So it can't be A, B, or D. The only option we have here is C. So our next question goes in and talk about active transport. And active transport is important to remember. It's a kind of transport that requires energy. No one B, C, or D mentions nothing about energy, use of energy, so it is only A that's possible here. And then they ask what substances are made by linking together glucose molecules only. Well, let's look here. Here I have proteins. Well, that requires some nitrogen. Again, here it requires some nitrogen, and we have some oils and some fats here that require stuff that's not only glucoses, but here, celluloses, glycogen, and starch. Yes, this is our one. This is our answer. Okay, so we get to one here about the food tests, and they are asked about a lot, so knowing the full food test is a good idea. So we are told here that we are tested to see if they contain protein, starch, or glucoses. Then they ask which solution contains protein and glucoses, but this is important, no starch. There is a lot of information here. So let's start about starch is tested by the iodine test. So if there is starch, it will turn yellow brownish. So we have two here, this one and this one does not contain starch. So already now we are down to B and C as options. Okay, we also know it contains glucoses. If it contains glucoses, it will turn brick red. So, okay, A and C are still in the game. And we know it contains protein. If it contains protein, it will turn purple. And this leaves us now with C being our only answer. But again, be careful. Mark either A, B, C, and D, because I have seen students mark, okay, then we mark this one, then we mark this one, then we mark this one. And this is wrong. Okay. Then they ask which type of biological molecules are enzymes made of, and this is something you just have to remember. They are always made of protein. Right. So here we have a diagram that shows molecule involved in the action of digestive enzyme. This one is important. It means we're breaking something down. We're not combining things. Okay, this is important. So A here and C, they show the enzyme. This shows the enzyme with the substrate. This here is a product. So our only possible answer here is, of course, B. This is the substrate before it gets digested and broken down to smaller parts. Okay, we continue our work here with enzymes. And this one here shows the activity of an enzyme with temperature. And we have the rate of enzyme activity here on my y-axis, and I have my temperature here on my x-axis. Okay, so they ask what is the optimum temperature for the enzyme, and at which temperature is the enzyme completely denatured. Okay, so this here, the last one we can see here, that's at 60. So in this case, it's either B or D. And the optimal temperature, we'll see here, at 50. So the only possible answer here is D. Again, it's important. Answer only A, B, C, or D. Do not use marking in here as your answer. And the drawing I'm doing here, I'm only doing them to illustrate the idea. Here's another one here that contains a experimental setup. And then we've seen more and more of those in the multiple choice over the years. And there's a lot of info to it. The important thing is here we have a plant and we have an indicator here. And we're told the indicator will turn yellow when CO2 increases, and we're told it turns blue when CO2 decreases. We don't have to know what indicator is, we just have to know this. Okay, after several hours, the indicator in the test tube turns blue, which means CO2 decreases. The indicator over here remains green. What process will cause the color change? Can it be germination? No. Germination will, in a closed one here, actually release CO2. Can it be respiration? No, respiration will release CO2. Can it be transpiration? Well, it might transpire, but this is only something to do with water. So our only option here is photosynthesis. And again, we know photosynthesis uses up CO2, so that makes our result very likely that we'll see a reduced amount of CO2 here, and thus seeing the change in the indicator. I know this seems complicated, and it's one of the more complicated here in our call questions. Here you come to one of the more simple ones, where you simply have to remember the definition. And transpiration is water loss. So we're going for C here, loss of water vapor from the leaves. Then we see one of those we also see quite a lot, where you have a part of a structure, and then you have to draw it, like figure out what's what on the structure. And here we see we have to ask where the cuticle is. And if you remember on the section on plants, the cuticle is the outer layer. So this here will be the cuticle. And then from the human diet, what is lacking in a diet of a person with scurvy? The pirate disease. And scurvy comes from lack of vitamin C. Next question here is about the human digestive system, and they ask, what is a part of the small intestine? Anus, no. Colon, no. Ileum, yes. And rectum, no. So again, this just shows how important it is to read up on these definitions, because they'll tend to come up a lot here in the multiple choice. So here again, we are giving an experiment we have to look at, and we have to talk about how it demonstrates two processes that takes place in the body. We have a tube here, a dialysis tube that's sealed. And if you remember the dialysis tube, it's partly permeable so that small molecules can move over the membrane. And we're told that in here is a mixture of saliva and starch solution. And then we know that saliva contains enzyme that'll break starch down from a long molecule to a shorter molecule. After 1 hour, the water outside the dialysis tubing contained reducing sugars. It didn't before. So sugar has come from the inside to the outside here. Which two processes are represented by this experiment? Well, we got digestion here that we're breaking down. So it has to be one that contains the word digestion, because that is what's happening when the enzymes are doing the stuff. And so we have that here, here, and here. And then we also see the movement here. So that will be absorption. So we see movement of the molecules as we do in absorption. Here comes another one of those that I've seen some students be confused about, and when then they go in and say, oh, number 1 is this one, 2 is this one, 3 is this one, 4 is this one. And now the important thing is you have to figure out which one will all of them be truthful. So if we look at first here, A, it says number 1 is a canine, but that's not a canine, so it can't be that one. So are both A and C is then off. We can't use any of them. We have B and D left. They both say it's a premolar. That's cool. Then they say number 2 here is incisor, which it is, and not a molar, as this one say. So the only option we have for answer already here comes in B. So kind of start by looking which one it can't be. Then you quickly can see which one it is. So here we have a diagram of the human digestive system. And we are asked, where does amylase act during digestion? Amylase breaks down starch from large molecules to small molecules, and it starts working already in our mouth. So we need to start here. Again, this is how some students gave the answer. This is not, I'm just showing you where, because the answer needs to be one of these here. A, the B, the C, and the D. But it works in the mouth. It can't work in the stomach because the pH is too low, but it starts working again here. So does anyone both have P and S? Well, yeah, B does. So our correct answer will be B. So our next two question looks at transport, both transport in plants here and transport in humans. So here we are first giving transport tissue. We see they say phloem and xylem. Well, they're both transport system. So okay, we can now both A, B, C, and D is possible, yes. Then they say, are they in a vascular bundle? Yes, they are. So now leaves us now with A and C as possible correct answer. Here they say that the phloem moves sucrose and amino acid. Yes, it does. And they asked us, does xylem move sucrose and amino acid? No, it moves water, which leaves us with the only one with the right answer is A. Then they ask, humans, which structure provides cell with oxygen? Some students saw oxygen and went straight for arteries or lungs, but they ask cell, and the cell is only next to the capillaries, so capillaries will be our answer here. The next one here, it does look quite complicated because you have the entire human circulatory system, and they ask what are the numbered blood vessels. Again, you actually don't need to know everyone, but we start here. This one here, number 5, which runs into the heart, that is the vena cava. So already here we can see any one of these that has vena cava as number 5 will be correct. And we have two of them here, this one and this one. By the way, I'm just showing you here, and you still need to answer by circling the right one. Then the pulmonary vein, which is the vein that goes from the lungs and down to the heart, is number 1. So already here, is there anyone who has that as number 1? Well, that does C. And okay, and they ask, is the renal artery number 3? Yes, it is. So already here, so although it looks very complicated, just by being able to name 2 of them, you can actually get the correct answer, C. So the next couple of questions here are actually quite easy. They list 4 different methods of transmitting pathogens, and they ask how many indirect methods are there here. And drinking contaminated water is indirect. Contact with another person's blood is direct. Another person's saliva is direct, and touching contaminated is indirect. So we have 2 indirect here. One is next to even easier. It looks hard. Which substance are used and produced in aerobic respiration in a plant cell? Okay, carbon dioxide is not used in respiration, it's used in photosynthesis. So here we can already scratch off A and B. And C says glucose and oxygen. That sounds good. D says glucose and water. Well, this one here, we like this one here. What is produced then? Okay, carbon dioxide and water. That sounds nice. Carbon dioxide and oxygen. That is wrong. So the only possible answer here is C. Next to here is also almost easy. There's a little trick question here. They ask which organ excretes urea, and some might say, "Oh, it's the bladder." But bladder is urine, not the urea. So if it was urine, but since it's urea, it's B, the kidney. And which statement about hormones is correct? The ovaries subject estrogen. That's correct. Pancreas create adrenaline? No. The pancreas secretes insulin? Yes. So 1 and 3 is correct. And the only one who has that is A. Nice. These 2 are a little easier. Next 2 question test your knowledge about plants. Here we have a plant shoot. that grows in toward the light. And they ask, what is the name of this plant whose response to light? Gravitrophism? No, that's growing as gravity. Photosynthesis? Yeah, but not what we're seeing here. Phototrophism, is where we grow towards the light. Yes. Yes, I do know they can do gravitrophism and they can do photosynthesis, but that is not what we see here. Then we know we have part of an insect pollinated flower listed, and we have the antler, the filament, the stigma, and the style, which are the part of the carpel. And I put the drawing of the flower next to this question here, so we can see, oh, that's 3 and 4 here, and which one has an answer? That has D, 3 and 4. So the next one here are also quite more simple, and they ask what is treated by antibiotics. Well, rickets and scurvy are diseases you get from malnutrition. Viral infection can only be treated by antiviral drugs. So the only one left here is, of course, a bacteria infection, which is also what penicillin with its antibiotic treats. Then they ask which statement describes asexual reproduction. It's important. So we have something that's genetically identical. So it can either be this one or this one. And this one for says from one parent, this one for says from two parents. And since asexual, it can only be from one parent, which is C. The next one here gives us 3 questions about reproduction, so that's quite a lot here. Let's say sperm are produced in much greater number than eggs. Why? Many sperm is needed. No, only one. Sperm cells are small in size. That's true, but that's not why they're produced. Sperm cells are non-motile. No, they can actually move. So that can't be that one either. The chance of one sperm reaching an egg is very small. Yes, that's why there are so many. What is the ball of cells that implant into the lining of the uterus during sexual reproduction? Well, it's the embryo. That's just one of the definitions you have to remember. Which sex chromosomes need to be present in a sperm cell to produce a male offspring? Here, remember, we get one chromosome from the sperm and one from the egg. So if we have one here in our sperm cell and we have one here in our egg, let's say this one is a Y and this one is an X, and we'll get a male. So the only one that needs to be present in a sperm cell to produce male offspring is just the Y, because then you can get the X from the egg. So here we get 2 questions about variation and selection. And we're told the blood types here are example of one type of variation. What is the cause of this type of variation? Well, the environment can't change your blood type. Genes, well, environment can't change your blood type. Mutation can't change your blood type, but your genetics determines your blood type. And I say here, which statement is an example of natural selection? Choosing donkeys with desirable characteristics, no, that's breeding. Choosing cross-pollinate, that's breeding. Inserting genes into a crop plant, that's making transgenic plants. And wildflowers, the development of petals that look like insects to attract pollinators. Oh, that is indeed something that would be an advantage for the plant, and that is natural selection. The next question here, it shows the increase in human population. And we have population over here, and we have the year here. Then they ask, what was the longest time it took for the population to double? We can see here from 1630 to 1830, it went from half to 1 billion, and that took 200 years. So the longest time on this chart it took for population to double is 200 years. A little funny way to ask, but that's how they do it. So we are now talking here about lichen. We're told they are organisms that do not grow well in polluted air. And this shows a change in the number of lichen species from the center of a polluted city, so we know it's polluted, to unpolluted countryside. This one here shows more lichen in the city than outside. That doesn't work. This one shows lichen going down and then up again. That won't work either. This one shows lichen number of species growing as we get away from pollution. That sounds good. And this one shows a weird bell shape here. That can't be it. The only possible answer would here be C. The last question here is about ecology. And they ask, which trophic level describes an organism that only eats herbivores? So, oh, that's a carnivore. Yeah, but where can we find that? A producer? No. That is a producer. And a herbivore is actually a first level consumer, primary consumer. So this is the herbivore. But a secondary consumer is our first predators. So this one here is the one that eats herbivores.